This is your reality check.
Hi everyone, and welcome to The Reality Check, the Canadian show that explores a wide range of controversies and curiosities using science and critical thinking. I'm your host, Darren McKee, and with me, as usual, are Adam Gardner.
What's up, Cuboids?
Christina Roach.
Hey everyone.
And producer Pat.
Hi, guys.
We have a great show for you today. I'm going to have a little segment on what would it be like if future artificial intelligences treat us as pets. But first, Adam, did a whistleblower prove that aliens exist?
Yes, he did.
Oh, quick.
I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens.
It's aliens.
Aliens have been in the news lately, and I know because of the type of the show we do, people probably assume we aren't really into the idea that aliens are real. So I want to be clear. I don't want to be dismissive about the idea of aliens. I think aliens exist. I don't think that we have seen plausible evidence that aliens have been to Earth. Those are two kind of very different ideas. A very vast universe, very vast galaxy we live in. I think there's probably aliens there. Hard to prove. So I'd be really happy to see evidence of aliens and read news about UFOs and aliens being real. I would love to see that. I'm usually disappointed when I read these articles because I look for something a little more substantial, and it's usually the same kind of vaguish stuff. So what's this recent news? Does it give any promising evidence that aliens could be among us? The main recent story is of whistleblower David Grusch. He claims that the government has non-human spacecraft. So, who's David Grusch? Why should we care? He is a U.S. Air Force officer who served in Afghanistan, and he is an intelligence official. While with the National Reconnaissance Office, NRO, between 2019 and 2021, he was with the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, so the U.S. UAP Task Force. We talked about that on the show before. Listeners may recall that UAP is the new name for UFO. So that's the name that the U.S. government is now using. So,
although I also heard unidentified anomalous phenomena as perhaps an even new one, because it's not just aerial.
Yeah, so that's a kind of DVD type of thing where like they're just changing what the acronym means without changing the acronym. So yes, it's still the same thing.
It's more just it allows for like, I don't know, some weird unknown thing in the water, for example.
Okay.
Right.
Good.
So you cover more ground, like, Avatar 2.
It's a great movie. It's on Disney Plus now if you want to check it out in Canada.
Buzz marketing Avatar like it needs the press.
Yeah, they need my help. There's a little movie called Avatar 2.
If you like papyrus.
I love the papyrus font. So I support the Avatar movies. So Grusch filed 2 complaints, one in 2021 and another in 2022. But it was his interviews with the media in June 2023 that got attention. So in 2021, he made complaints and alleged that classified UFO-related information was being concealed from Congress and the UAP program, that program that he had worked with. And in 2022, he complained about retaliation that he received related to his whistleblowing in the 2021 complaint, because there's protections around whistleblowing, stuff that he worked to establish. So the first article on the topic was from the Debrief on June 5th, though Grusch does not claim to have first-hand experience with any alien technology or any actual alien beings. He says that other people working in intelligence, both working people and retired people, told him that they were aware of the U.S. government possessing basically the remains of alien spacecrafts. So more specifically, for decades, everything from partial fragments to complete intact vehicles had been recovered by the U.S. government, its allies, and defense contractors. Analysis shows that they were exotic in origin, meaning non-human intelligence, whether extraterrestrial or unknown origin. So this is perhaps an important point, assuming that his information is valid and truthful, that the sources he got them from were valid and truthful. There's a big difference between extraterrestrial, meaning not from Earth, and simply unknown origin. So with some real specifics here, we can't determine how legitimately alien these artifacts are, as opposed to simply being of unknown origin. We just don't know. So it could be humans that made it.
You could have a secret part of the government like this, storing these things, that a different secret part of the government made and didn't tell that part.
Yeah.
Like, really? Trump wouldn't have found this out and told everyone?
Yeah, so that's one funny argument I find is, if Trump knew about it, wouldn't he have told everybody? Maybe, or maybe you didn't know about it. I don't have a full answer to that. So Grusch is attempting to do what he considers the right thing by providing this information to the Defense Office of Pre-Publication and Security Review at the Department of Defense. Others have vouched for Grusch's reputation, including Carl E. Neal, a retired Army colonel and aerospace executive who was the Army's liaison to the UAP task force while David Grusch was there. And he's not alone in mentioning this. Christopher Mellon, who spent years in the intelligence community and was the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, worked with Congress on UAPs. And he similarly said that a number of well-placed current and former officials told him about this program, including details about where these crafts were abandoned and recovered. And he's worked to make declassified briefings available to Congress as well. Now, another intelligence official, Jonathan Gray, works with the National Air and Space Intelligence Center, said that the non-human intelligence phenomenon is real and said, and I quote, "We are not alone." So he claims that retrievals had been made by the U.S. and other countries.
And other countries.
Yes.
That's interesting, right? Because that means more people would have to be keeping it secret.
Well, yeah. So that means the other countries, the other government is full of people that have this information that are keeping it tight, or there are a lot of players here. The exact number varies. Some people said a handful, and some people said hundreds of people are aware of these programs, right? So later in June, David Grusch appeared on News Nation to discuss the same thing. Basically, here he said the UAP task force was denied access to a broad crash retrieval program. He described retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles. So that'd be non-technical of exotic origin. So vehicles that had either landed or crashed, on U.S. soil or elsewhere. The interview asks if it's spacecraft from another species, and Grusch says yes. That's really what we're talking about. We're not talking about dogs when we say other species. We're talking about aliens.
Maybe it was intelligent dogs from a different planet.
It's like a dog car. It's like got 4 pedals and it's got all kinds of cool stuff like that. So he says that he can't show the media proof because of security reasons, and he hadn't seen the crafts himself, but he had spoken to people who had seen those crafts. So he says, and I quote, "We're definitely not alone. Absolutely, the data points empirically that we're not alone." So when asked about bodies or species, he said they had encountered dead pilots. The Pentagon denies that they have any information which would suggest the possession or reverse engineering of extraterrestrial material. So that's really what we're talking about, is a program to reverse engineer this technology. That's the purpose of having it. But this fits with what Grusch is saying, since he believed that the information is being hidden from AARO, so the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. So he has no first-hand information, but he's repeating what he heard from others. Okay, so what is this? It's a guy who says he's heard things, but doesn't have the first-hand evidence, and didn't even see that first-hand evidence. He's not passing on evidence from others, and we don't even know what kind of convincing evidence they've given him, because he's not giving us the specifics, he's giving those specifics to Congress. Yes, he seems to be honest, he seems to be respectable. That doesn't mean he isn't potentially just mistaken for passing on information from people who are themselves mistaken about some specifics, say the origin of these crafts, or I don't know what these alien species look like or anything like that. So what else has been going on? Since this has been happening, Michael Schellenberger has been writing about similar things, which caught my eye, and I wanted to talk about that a bit, kind of adds in a similar way. So Schellenberger is an author. He's written a couple books I read, Apocalypse Never, Why Environmental Alarmism Hurts Us All. Talks about how activists and media paint an unrealistic and exaggerated picture of the dangers of climate change that don't fit with the evidence that climate scientists themselves are arguing. He also wrote San Francisco, Why Progressives Ruin Cities. He criticizes political policies in California, more specifically San Francisco, which contribute to homelessness, addiction, mental illness, and crime in those places. And he kind of talks about a very broad variety of issues.
Why is this relevant?
Sorry, this is just background on this guy. He was one of the authors who released information as part of the Twitter files, which was recently about internal documents in Twitter that were leaked. So now he's talking about aliens. So it's kind of all over the map with this stuff. So he wrote an article on his Substack Public. He also has been doing some media appearances in the past week or so. We're recording on June 20th. And he kind of adds a similar idea to what David Grusch had been saying, while confirming the same account. So he talks about having had many people comment about their knowledge of such artifacts. He describes his anonymous contacts as being, and I quote, sane, highly intelligent, and in a position to know and at a high level of security clearance. And that information, he has suggested the government has up to a dozen ships that the U.S. government has been trying to reverse engineer that technology. But the security has made that research difficult, right? If you don't have access to the top talent, if you're not able to be open about what that is, or if you have to hide what those people are doing while they're doing that investigation. One contractor specified 6 of those ships were in good shape and another 6 were not.
Adam, what I find puzzling is that there's these bunch of people, high-level people who have this security clearance are just going around telling other people.
So all the people involved have security clearance. So they're cleared to know this information. So the idea is that these are people with a high level of security clearance that are sharing information with each other. That being said, I work for a government organization. I have a very high security clearance level. People don't tell me information that is not relevant to my job.
Need to know.
Because, there's need to know. So for someone to go around and be telling everybody about, like, aliens, reverse engineering alien spacecraft, unless that person is involved in reverse engineering alien spacecraft, would be just, like, bad. Like, that would not be...
That'd be a threat to national security.
Yes.
It actually might be even illegal.
So that's...
Also, 6 out of 12 is interesting. So I want to say a couple things. One is, yes, imagine you're in a boring government meeting and someone's just briefing you on this. Like, there's not maybe a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
It's like, and by the way, there may be alien craft. And you're back like, oh, okay. Not like, can I see it? You just raise your hand, right? And then, as you said, for anyone working on this, you'd need an extraordinary amount of clearance. So then you could imagine... Yes. Like, again, are these stored in those boxes from that scene in X-Files in some large basement or something? Is there a security guard? Is there a mechanic? And all the mechanics are like super top secret. So all this is sort of like, how many people have to be involved to even understand all? Anyway, it just sounds like it's more than a handful.
It's like the moon conspiracy, Darren. Right?
I assume anyone who has access to that site has a high security clearance.
I agree. I know. I'm just thinking it's interesting that, like, say you're, I don't know, a custodian, right? And you just move boxes around, and you're like, oh, but for you,
what's in this thing?
You are going to get super top secret, which you can't talk about at any future job that you were. Anyway, I just find that interesting. Also, that I was thinking of a quote now with Daniel Ellsberg when he was talking to Henry Kissinger, that Kissinger was about to get like extra security clearances that people don't know about.
Yep.
And just, there is a world, yes, where you think top secret's it, and like, no, it isn't.
There's the next level.
As at least, right? And at least in the States, and who knows what else.
Yeah.
So there are rarefied domains where people have clearance for certain types of things, and they can talk to each other. But as Adam said, to then have it kind of like be mentioned outside of that is super weird.
It's a little weird. People are human. People gossip. People talk about things they shouldn't talk about. But there's a limit to that, and that limit is like national security, right? That limit, and this really seems to be pushing that limit.
Yeah.
And for him to admit and name the people who did that to Congress, yes, he had the clearance, and they do too. But he's potentially getting them in trouble because they probably shouldn't have shared that with him, right?
Yes. Yep.
So it's interesting, but that was his job. His job was to be aware of alien crafts and things like that. So people may have mentioned that to him in the course of duty, whatever you want to call it, right?
Versus there's a different government organization that's clueless, even though they're also supposed to be aware of anything like this.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, there's the other myth that like the government just knows everything that the government knows, and that's just
no.
Anyone who's worked with the government or tried to deal with the government probably knows that is absolutely not true. Why don't they have this information about my tax information? They just don't. The systems aren't linked. It just doesn't happen. It's impossible.
I'm not saying it's aliens that have your taxes, but
yeah, I don't know. So one of these spaceships, it was said to have looked like a chopped up helicopter, with the front bubble of a Huey helicopter with the plastic windows, or more like a deep sea submarine with a thick piece of glass bubble shaped, and where the tail rudder should have been, it was a black egg-shaped pancake, and instead of landing gear, it had upside-down ram's horns that went from the top to the bottom and rested on the ends of the horns. So that's a
That's descriptive.
Fascinating picture. I want to like give that to Midjourney and see what it draws for me.
I like the phrase now, egg-shaped pancake. I'm like, okay, what do you want from me here? I'm not sure what I'm supposed to picture.
That's because you haven't seen the craft,
yes,
Darren.
Exactly.
So many locations for craft retrieval were mentioned, including Area 51.
Oh,
so we're going back to that.
Did those people ever storm it at him?
It's kind of strange. Like, if aliens were real, would we all be like, yeah, but the Area 51 one was fake? Or would we be like, oh, this explains Area 51, you know? I don't know. It depends. One of the contacts described seeing an extraterrestrial, but Michael Schellenberg kept it out of the story. So he was asked, I think it was a Fox reporter who asked him specifically about that. And he was like, he wasn't comfortable with sharing it. And he admits that it sounded crazy. He may have just thought that it made his story sound less believable with that level of detail.
Not that his story did it all for itself.
No, but this kind of comes to like, what do people, like, there's a limit to what people will accept when it comes to like a UFO story, where if alien spacecrafts and aliens were real and were here, you would actually expect to see a strong level of evidence that sounds ridiculous, right? So if all the evidence we ever get is really within the confines of like blurry photos and secondhand informations and things like that, that's not consistent with it being real, right? That's consistent with it not being real. So some of the people Schellenberg talked to are the same ones that David Grusch had talked to, but he also talked to some other people. So are these people reliable? Why aren't there more of them? We don't know, right? When people speak up, it can hurt their credibility, but the more people that do speak up, the more credible it sounds, and the more I think this is going to happen. So whether aliens are real or not, let's assume for a moment aliens are real. People are talking about it. People are coming out with this information. It's getting positive press. These people aren't being ridiculed as cranks. That can be good for the disclosure of truth. If aliens aren't real, it doesn't really matter. So we can think of reasons for which people might not want to talk if aliens were real, but we can also think of reasons for people not wanting to talk if aliens aren't real, and it's just, they aren't real, there aren't aliens, there's nothing to talk about. So that could be a reason too. So I like to think I'd be a guy who would tell everyone about it if I saw an alien. I don't know. I've not been presented that problem. I've not seen aliens. Honest, guys, I've not seen alien spacecrafts.
I don't trust you.
Maybe you shouldn't. I don't know. So where does this leave us? So we don't have firsthand evidence. We don't have photos. We don't have videos. We don't have an actual piece of an alien craft or technology which someone gave to the press or gave to a university to investigate. We have the words of people who are speaking about the words of other people. So this could all point to aliens being real, having been to Earth, the craft being uncovered, but that's kind of an extreme idea. There's not a lot of strong existing evidence for aliens having been on Earth before. If they had been here, what kind of evidence would we like to see? What kind of evidence would we expect to see? I would think higher quality evidence, artifacts, photos, video, things like that. So we haven't seen that. So you kind of have to weigh the evidence of a questionable thing with the strength of that new evidence. The existing evidence is weak. This doesn't fundamentally change that assumption. It makes it a little more plausible, but to me, it doesn't. It's not like definitive proof this is what happens. If this really is legitimate, there is being light shined on it. This is the right thing to do. Congress and the UAP task force, if they really were in the dark about it, they might shed some light about it and admit what's going on. They might not. They might just be government about it and be secret about it. So Michael Schellenberg made a good point. If they're not real, there's no reason not to investigate. The only reason to block this is if aliens are real and they're still trying to hide it. So I do hope that a proper investigation is done. I'm not really holding my breath that it's going to lead to any big reveal, but I do hope that happens. So let's assume for a moment this is all legit. The U.S. government does have alien technology. It's very possible they'll continue to hide it. They'll continue to hide it from Congress and the UAP task force, or maybe if this task force does get it, they'll actually decide, you know what, we're not actually going to admit to the world that there's aliens, even though that is our main purpose. That is our mandate. We're not going to do it.
So are aliens always just landing in the U.S.?
Oh, and only the U.S.
And only the U.S.?
Yeah. I don't know. You could probably do a map of like where the crafts are coming from and where they're collected from. I don't know. Maybe they find it more interesting there for some reason. I don't know. There's also like, I've heard arguments that said like, oh, we have this craft that's on this other planet and it never crashed and stuff like that. And it's like, yes, that's interesting because the more advanced alien species, they might not be crashing their stuff. But like also, like we got old rovers and we got stuff, you know, there's crap on the moon and there's crap on Mars that comes from us and there's stuff like that. So maybe aliens could still crash their stuff. I don't know.
You know, it could, of course.
I don't know what their safety features are like. I don't know what if they prioritize the health and safety of the people they send. So, are these drones?
I've long thought that any sort of advanced space travel would not involve biological entities.
Yes.
Because it's just ridiculous to have that versus something AI or a probe, as you say. So the idea that these are alien craft seem more plausible to me than they're alien craft piloted by aliens.
Oh, yeah.
That seems silly.
Yeah, it's Top Gun stuff.
Yeah, you can imagine like there's an advanced species that sends probes without biological. Then like super advanced somehow sends biological creatures also because they can somehow, manage, I don't know, wormholes or who knows what. But they get so fantastical, it seems a bit odd. I also wanted to say is, I'm not going to lean into like conspiracy theories or psyops, but if you want to distract the public, talking about aliens like this can be useful, even if there's nothing to it. Because you said there'd be no reason to talk about, there's reasons for a lot of things, right?
Yep.
And then I also think, mass hysteria doesn't quite fit here, but we do have sometimes large groups of people happen to believe something.
Yes.
And it seems like they couldn't all possibly be making this up, could they? And yes, they could. Absolutely. And the fact, again, because we don't have any actual evidence, it's a concern. Again, I'm not saying there isn't. I'm open to it. I think it'd be interesting, to say the least. The most interesting things ever if there were.
Earth-shattering, yes.
But I need more evidence to fully update.
Yeah. Aliens may be real, though the Fermi paradox suggests they might be somewhat rare. Have aliens been to Earth, and has the U.S. government, their allies, and even their enemies retrieved pieces of an entire alien spacecraft? Some reliable people say that they are, but we lack any firm evidence of this. Some say the truth is out there. Is it really?
Humans as pets for advanced AI. Well, as AI advances and people ponder what it would be like to exist alongside a highly capable, superintelligent entity, some have thought of different outcomes for the fate of humanity. Instead of accidental or intentional extinction, perhaps humans would be treated as pets. You hear this once in a while. So this segment is a brief exploration of that idea.
That's on Rick and Morty. Isn't there a world where...
Well, yes, I think pets? Rick and Morty covers almost all worlds. And there's that We'll Make Great Pets. Wasn't that a song?
Great tune by Porno for Pyros.
There you go. So imagine humans as pets. What comes to mind? Did you picture a cat or a dog that receives a lot of attention? A cute kitty or doggy that's kept safe inside, has regular safe food, gets lots of attention, toys. Heck, many pets even get birthday parties and Christmas presents. Perhaps you've...
Won't stop barking.
Yes, that too. Perhaps you've always had a secret dream of being carried around in a purse, and you finally get to lead your best life. Further, some pets even get massages and have therapists and personal trainers, and so many other things that would make someone in extreme poverty cry if they weren't lacking electrolytes.
But those aren't things that a pet values. It's a thing a human values.
Well, we're going to get to some of that. But many pets aren't treated that well at all. Numerous stories of abuse, mistreatment, overt neglect, and even the more common situation of being left home alone all day or being in a little crate while the owner is away. Many cats don't care about being alone, it seems, but most dogs are genetically bred to be social creatures, so it's reasonable to think that they are lonely a lot of the time, if that's the case. Some people make their pets wear stupid outfits for their own amusement. And much to the grumpiness of the pet.
Yes.
I'll admit to finding videos of cats failing to drink water out of a tap hilarious, as well as how a slice of cheese on their head completely destabilizes all notions of space and time for them. Is this mean for me to look at this and laugh? Perhaps a bit, I can be honest. Then there's the issue of where your pet comes from. Well, was it through a friend, a store, a pure breeder? Whatever the case, it's almost always true that the pet is separated from their mother and father. They were taken from their parents, and if at a young age, never know them or see their parents or siblings again. Most owners of dogs and cats have their ovaries and uterus or testes removed. Not necessarily what one might want. Also, there's two comedic references, which I can't help drop in here. Neil Brennan has a line when someone's like, "Oh, I'm just a dog mama." It's like, no, that dog had a mother and you took it from her. That's harsh from number one. And Dimitri Martin, there's a fine line between having a pet and a hostage. You visit someone's house, close the door. Don't let it out. Don't let it out. It's like, well, maybe the animal doesn't want to be there.
Yes.
Okay, so a quick summary. Kidnapped forever, housebound, castrated, partially neglected, dressed stupidly for others' amusement, and unfortunately sometimes abandoned and then euthanized due to disinterest or medical bills being too high. And perhaps worse, on a farm, some pets eventually become food. This is not an outcome most people would want. But I have acknowledged I presented a rather one-sided account, and that's mainly because I think people default to the positives about pets and forget about the negatives. So my emphasis was as a corrective. Let me be clear and say that many, if not most pets are loved and loved so very much, adored and treasured even. The owner sacrifices a lot to keep their pet fed, warm, healthy, and safe, and many pets appear to be happy. It seems, or at least they don't appear to be sad. It's also likely that if you live inside as an indoor pet, you're much likely to live longer. So you might have longer lifespans and fewer injuries. We humans aren't really the same types of creatures as our pets. We may have similar foundational needs, but many other needs are different from cats, dogs, hamsters, and the like. So would our AI owners keep us in prison cells like cages or like, a one-bedroom apartment? Would we be allowed outside for exercise or to talk to other humans? Would we get excellent medical care or even pills to cure all our diseases, including mental health issues? Would AI owners give us special treats like different food or maybe even insights about ourselves and the nature of the universe? Here you go. Or they might trick us into doing stupid things for their amusement. So perhaps they'd even roll their artificial eyes while we hump sex dolls.
Oh my God.
Would they force breeding between certain humans to get different genetic types, like we do with pets? It all starts to sound a bit odd and concerning. What does the panel think?
I feel like Darren has given this a lot of thought.
I think if we have been relegated to being pets of an artificial intelligence, it is because that artificial intelligence is more intelligent and more capable than us. Therefore, they're likely capable of anticipating our interests better than we are capable of anticipating the interests of our pets, and maybe more capable of satisfying those interests while still keeping us as pets. So when I think of humans as pets, I think of humans similar to a zoo animal. And what I think is perhaps interesting is, will the artificial intelligences, assuming that they don't kind of all come to the same conclusions because they have similar levels of intelligence, maybe they'll debate what the most authentic sort of life that a human would desire is. Well, don't put that human in a mansion because that's maybe what they think they want. But a human actually evolved in the African savannah. So you need to set up a habitat that resembles that because it's more natural. But maybe some of what is natural in their lives is predation and suffering and things like that. So that, I wonder if they would debate the best way to give us a cushy, sheltered
a healthy life,
right?
But a close kin social network. The idea where you can consistently make progress towards a goal and believe it has value, but maybe never achieve it. This might actually be what humans optimize for happiness.
Maybe. And many of the weird things that we do to pets are things that humans value that we're putting on pets. What would be the analog of a thing that an artificial intelligence values and puts onto a human? And would they be unintelligent enough to actually do that to us?
Or you're also highlighting, would they care? Because some humans really care about their pets' interests, and some humans don't.
Yeah.
Or they think they do, and they actually don't.
Yeah.
Toronto, since you have pets, how do you feel about this?
Our dog is healthy and happy.
I don't know about that.
Well, he's with us 24/7. So.
Yes.
Yeah, he's only really awake during the podcast recording.
Exactly, and he's not very happy about it right now.
For the greater good.
It's just such a weird notion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand. That's, it leads to my summary. In summary, exploring and reflecting on possible experiences, being an artificial superintelligence's pet, indicates life could be a very mixed experience. It's really hard to know. As the possibility of terrible things you wish you could never experience or wonders you couldn't possibly dream of. Perhaps being a pet won't be so bad, but there are many reasons to be wary of any such dynamic.
And is your thinking that they would keep us around as pets just for their own entertainment, Darren?
Yes. It could be entertainment, it could be intellectual curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
We run simulations, like video games.
It's like an ant farm.
There you go.
If they put us in a zoo that is convincing enough to seem real, could that already be happening?
Do you mean like Earth?
Yes.
Because we have alien craft?
Yeah.
Well, we're in a simulation anyway.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's put the simulation aside.
No, let's tie it all together. Advanced aliens set up the Earth, and the only reason we have some indication of their craft, that Adam said, is because of glitches or bugs in the system.
Yeah, it's like some kid throwing like a Coke can into the enclosure.
Yes.
And it's like, what is this Coke can? It'd be like it's an alien spacecraft because it's like whatever. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us once again, listeners. And until next time, think better to act better.
Peace out, cuboids.
Stay classy, not smart-assy.
We'll talk to you soon.
For show notes or to discuss this episode, visit our Facebook page and website at trcpodcast.com. For general inquiries or to send a topic or parody suggestion, email info@trcpodcast.com. Help support the show by leaving a review on iTunes and liking us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at @TRC_podcast.